welcome back to the channel. Right, now today we're going to be doing disc and pads, or should I say brake rotors, with the usual YouTube American bollocks. But first job to do, which seems to be quite common recently, is when you buy parts from your car parts, first job to do is to go and take them back and swap them for the right ones, because they've mispicked again and they're the rears off some sort of fucking Peugeot or something or other, which, I mean, they got built-in wheel bearings. I mean, they're probably worth a few quid actually, but I've got to go back and swap them first, so that's the first job, and then we'll try again. Right, so welcome back again. I forgot to say, don't forget to ring the bell and subscribe. Right, now we've been back to Euros and we have the correct brake discs, sorry, brake rotors, hopefully. So first of all, we're gonna undo the wheel, which I think is a 17 milli socket. Yeah. So we'll crack the wheel off initially. And we'll do that for the other four, which will be the same process for 4 times. Right, so after we've cracked all the wheel bolts off, then we have a swig of Coke. And then we jack the car up. You see where the jacking point is on the sill there, little strengthening part. We use that, so that's when we jack the car up. Right, so that's jacked up and the wheel is off the floor, so we can take the wheel off all the way. Quick with a buzz gun. Not got a buzz gun here. Now I will make a list of all the tools that I needed at the end of the video. I might put it in the front of the video, I haven't decided yet, but we'll see. Right, so that's the wheel off. Yes, them discs, they don't need changing. They've all got about a 5 milli lip on them. And because the tyres are skinny, we'll put it there anyway. We'll pay lip service to the idea, because I ain't got any axle stands here, so jack stands, but we'll put it there anyway. But I think the disc will touch the floor before it lands on that. So next job is we take the cap off the brake fluid reservoir. So this is just to let the fluid back into the reservoir without spunking up everywhere. Put that on there so we can lose that later. Now you can crack the bleed nipple off on the caliper and then top it up, which that's one way of doing it. This way it's at your own risk. You can fold the seals back inside the master cylinder, but if you're gentle that should never really happen. Yeah, like I say, you can crack the bleed nipple off and do it that way, or you can do it this way, but I said this is slightly risky, but I've never had an issue doing it. So as you can see, I've turned the steering to give myself some access, so now it's time for another swig of Coke. And then we're going to push the piston back in the caliper. Now this way is if you wedge it in there and just gently, it's nice and free actually, I'm just doing it slow so I don't damage the master cylinder. But this is one way of doing it. Now if you're working on new discs, you might not want to do this because you can scuff up the disc, but as you can see, these aren't new discs. I mean, that's quite impressive, that lip on there. I mean, the pads, yeah, there's not a lot of metal left on that. So yeah, let's get to the next step. Right, so let's undo this little retaining knot. Now that is a T30 on this car. Now what I always recommend is when that's in there, just to give the end of this a little bit of a clout, but obviously all that at the same time. You don't always have to do that. Sometimes they come out easy, sometimes they can be stiff. If they're stiff, just you can stick a screwdriver in there and just stop the disc from turning as you're undoing it. So let's take that out and proceed. Right, so that's that out. Next thing is these here. Now these are 13mm, and because of the shape of that, you don't need a spanner behind it because that won't spin. So I just take them out. Try and be quick so it's a bit less boring. Put the lower screws together, take the other one out. That one's not finger tight. Now if you're just changing the pads and not the disc, you only need to set one of these out and you can pivot the caliper up like that. But we're changing the disc, so we might as well take it all off. Now ideally, you do not want to let that hang on there, because that can stretch the hose. So I'm just going to place it on there like that for now, and then we need to take these bolts out, which I think are 17. So they're the next thing to come out. They're the caliper carrier bolts. But we'll take them out. You don't need to watch me take 2 bolts out, do you? So let's do that and come back. Right then, so we've got these loose. Now let's take the pads out. There's one. You can see it has a lip on there, the way it's worn. And the other one. And let's take this bolt out all the way. Take the caliper off. Sorry, the carrier off. And another thing to do is to make sure that these are nice and free. If they seize up, then it's going to fuck you up. Stop this falling on the floor, just hold that a minute. So there we have it, that's the carrier off. And then the disc. Now we need to make sure that doesn't fall anywhere. So just place that gently. This should just come off when I gently. Yeah, that's quite stiff. But we need a bigger hammer. I think that's been on a while actually. Fucking hell. Right, I'm going to get that off and then I'll come back. A couple of good hits to get that off, and as you can see, it's put up a little bit of resistance. And has been on a while. So next, we need to get a wire brush. And this face wants to be as clean and smooth as possible. So let's come back with a wire brush. Now this is a novelty, the sun's actually come out. But what we need to clean up is, like I said, we'll clean this face up with a wire brush. And we'll do a bit of that. And get all these little bits of rust off there. We're going to clean all this up, take the squeal shims out, if you can even see that, because I can't see the screen of my phone. We'll clean all that up, and we'll clean all this up as well. So we'll clean everything up as good as it can be before putting anything back together. Now we give everything a wire brush off, then we give it a bit of a spray with some brake cleaner. Now I'll do it properly when I'm holding it, but as you can see, and it's very important to clean behind where these fit, otherwise it causes it to be a tight fitment and can cause binding brakes. Another thing worth noting is the way that these go. The little, let me balance that. Not going to balance, is it? Fucking stay still. Right. The little ears here, there you see, them face away from the disc outwards. So if you put them in the wrong way around, then it's going to scrub off disc and sound shit. Now another thing worth noting is that these two holes here are threaded. They look to be M8 thread, which is usually 30mm head. And if you're struggling to get the disc off, you can wind some bolts in there and it will work as a puller. So if we compare the new disc to the old disc, we have got a nice shiny new one and a fucked one, and that lip is quite legendary. So let's put this into place and we'll get some brake cleaner and we'll wipe all that off before we put it on, but that's going to go on there. So let's clean it first. Don't really need to show you this, but when they're new, they come greased to stop them rusting for when you get them. So let's do a proper job of polishing that, and then we'll put it on car. Right, so I've just given that a scrub with some brake cleaner, and it's not coming very clean. So I don't know what they've coated it with. Now it'll come off first time car's driven, but it is nice to get the transport grease off, but it's not coming off. Well, it's mainly off. So now we need to put the disc into place. And let's move that. And we line the locating all up, and we put our little bolt back in. Now the observant will notice that I've put, it's not focusing so you might not notice anything, put a bit of copper dick on it, so next time it comes out it should be seized. So we'll get that bolted in. And then we'll nip that up. That doesn't have to be tight. The wheel bolts hold the disc in place. That's just the, well, to stop the disc falling off when you turn the wheel up, really. So let's put the carrier back on. Right, so this is our caliper bridge, which needs putting back into place. Now, just get a bolt in it. That's one bolt in. And another one. So the next thing to do, as you'd expect, is going to be to tighten them up. So next we're going to throw the pads in, and it's always worth making sure that they're the right ones, which struck lucky, but I don't know, they might be wrong then, because them are a lot thicker than them. Anyway, so they're the right ones. So what we need to do is we need to put a bit of copper slip on the back of there as well. And main place to put it is, I mean, you put a bit on the back, it's to stop squeal, but put a little bit around these ears on the outside, and it then where it sits on here, it gives it like a, well, a bit of grease to sit on. So let's put a bit of that on there, and then we'll put these pads in. Right, so as you can see, nice thin smear, and put it around the ears. Now there's a bit of controversy with copper slip, because some people say, no, don't use copper slip, this is easy with two hands, but I always have done, and I think it's good practice, but that's up to you. Some people say not to use it, some people say to use it. But the pads, when they go in, it's easier with two hands, but you want to sort of come in and twist them in. I'm trying to show this way without, right, there we go. Can you actually see that? Right, that's one in. And then we do the same for the other. probably just filming the fucking floor actually, but see, people keep on telling me that I need a tripod to do a better quality video, but I think that takes away from the charm. So there is the new pads in place, and as you can see, we've got a nice bit of friction material, a nice new disc, and now we need to put the caliper on. So another important factor is that when you put this caliper on, pistons come out slightly, but when you put this caliper on, we'll have to take the piston back. Make sure that this isn't twisted in that counter. So let's get this into place. So now we've got that into place, and we have new bolts to put in. So put them bolts in, which have got a little bit of thread lock on them. I need to line that up. Now that one's one, there's the other, and then we'll tighten them up, straighten the wheel up and throw the wheel back on. Right, so now as you can see, not twisted, bolts are in, bolts are tight, everything's tight. You can double check that this is all on. And another important thing to do is to come round here, and that middle pedal, or the left hand pedal if it's an automatic, you want to pump it. Otherwise, first time you drive it, might not stop. So now that is one side done, and let's throw the wheel back on. Let's flip this back into place. And we'll tighten them up, and always remember when you put your wheel trim back on, sorry, hubcap, American bullshit again, line your valve up to the hole in the wheel trim where it fits up to, and make sure you tighten your wheels up. And when you have done 100 miles or so, you want to tighten them again because it can come loose. Now I do apologise if this video is more boring than the usual shit that I do, but there is more of the usual shit to come when I get a chance to do it. But this is a serious matter, this. I mean, these brakes, I mean, they did want doing. I mean, we've got 68 horsepower under our right foot here, and we're braking on them. You know, it's a performance vehicle. It's also, I forgot to mention, this isn't the normal C1. This is a more door, more hose version, which is got air conditioning tins and electricity windows and everything. And it's actually, this one's actually nice to drive as far as small cars go, rather than being noisy and shit. So anyway, let's finish the video up and wrap it up at that, because my battery's at 10% and pretty much done. Right, so we've nipped the wheel up and we release Jack and Jill, and then we tighten the wheel up again. I mean, ideally you do have a torque wrench for this, but I ain't got a torque wrench here. I've got one at work, and I think I've put enough wheels on to know when they're about right. But just remember to check them again in 100 miles or so, because when you've had wheels off, they can come loose. So let's put the wheel trim back on before battery runs out on my telephonic communications device. Yes. Let's do that with two hands, shall we? Ta-da! Yeah, I forgot to mention the required tools. Obviously, you're going to need a jack. And you need a T30. Oh, this is what mine had in it, a T30. 12 and a 13, depending on what size the caliper bolts are on the slides. 17mm for the wheels and for the caliper main bolts. You're probably going to need a hamule, wire brush, brake cleaner, don't need coconut water, and some copper dick. So, oh yeah, screwdriver. Now you can use pliers instead to push the piston back, but it's, as long as they're not massively seized up, which they shouldn't be, unless there's a problem, you can do it the way I did it with a screwdriver, which is
Probably easier.
And then when you're finished, you do the same on the other side.